Good evening, everyone. I see the time is 5:31 p.m. I'd like to call this a regular council meeting of the Village Council of Harrison Hot Springs to order. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that our meeting today takes place on the traditional territory of Chehalis. There's no public hearing this evening. Are there any late items to introduce? I have one. It's a slight amendment to the agenda that I'd like to propose, and that is to permit comments and questions from people in the gallery or online following item 9A, which is the presentation by the village's consultants on the dike upgrade. I'd just like to move that that be added into the agenda prior to council deliberation on the recommendations. Councillor Swinburne seconds the motion. Any discussion to modify our agenda that way? Councillor Jackson.
We've been at this for almost 3 years, and I don't think we can get any more positive information. I think you're kicking the can down the road. We were here, we were elected to make decisions. We've had all the information that we need, and that's the way I think we really have to go. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Any other comments? Councillor Swinburne.
Just to clarify, you're not proposing at this point in time to defer any decisions tonight. You just want to have an opportunity for people who are interested to speak, and I'm supportive of that. I think it aligns with our commitment to the DEI process, which is people just want to be accessible and heard, and I think they'd feel better about that. If there's any comments, I agree with Councillor Jackson. There is not likely to be any opposition, but we could have a better informed decision, and there may be some good ideas and some good comments that come out of it. So I'm supportive of hearing the public before we get into the meat of the discussion. Thank you.
Councillor Vital.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. Just for clarification, we'll have the presentation, and then if any member in the gallery or online wants to speak to it, after that, council will have the discussion on it, and then we'll go for the vote. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So it's just an opportunity, like usually after our budget presentation, there's an opportunity for final comment or questions from the public prior to considering final adoption of the budget. So it's similar to that. Seeing no further comments, I'll call the vote on that proposed amendment to the agenda. All in favor? Opposed? Noted, Councillor Jackson. That motion carries. Which takes us, is there any other late items to introduce? I don't see any. I'll move to item 5 on the agenda, which is approval of now our amended agenda. Moved by Councillor Faccio, seconded by Councillor Vital. Any discussion on that? I see none. I'll call the vote. All in favor of the agenda, and that carries. Are there any conflicts of interest tonight to declare? I don't see any, which takes us to item 7 on the agenda, which is adoption of council minutes. Could I have a motion to move that the regular council meeting minutes of May 4th, 2026 be adopted, and that the special pre-close meeting, council meeting minutes of May 5th also be adopted? Moved by Councillor Vital, seconded by Councillor Swinburne. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, and that carries. Is there any business arising from the minutes this evening? Seeing none, I will move to item 9, delegations and petitions. And it is Mr. Daniel Maldoff, who I believe is joining us remotely. Is that correct? Thank you. The floor is yours, Mr. Maldoff.
Thank you. I am just, okay, there we go. My video is going. Thanks for having me this evening, everyone. It's good to see you all again and to check in on this exciting project. So I will just share my screen. All right. Thanks, everyone. So this evening, I am providing an update on the waterfront flood mitigation project. And just a quick introduction. So I'm Daniel Maldoff. I'm a hydrotechnical engineer at Northwest Hydraulic Consultants. We are the prime consultant on this project, and we are working with a specialized team of consultants to handle the project areas required. We have Space to Place doing landscape architecture, Thurber Engineering for geotechnical, and Legacy Environmental for environmental and permitting. So agenda for this presentation, I'll give just a quick project overview as a refresher, an update on the design, and a discussion of proposed next steps. So just to review the project components, there are two main pieces of the project. There is the waterfront dike, which is the yellow line that you see there along the shoreline of Harrison Lake. And then we have the wastewater treatment plant access road and shoreline, which is the pink line to the left side of the screen. And we refer to the different project areas by zone. Zone 1 is the wastewater treatment plant. Zone 2 is the access road to the treatment plant. Zone 3 is the dike in front of Hot Springs Resort. Zone 4 is the dike in front of the main commercial waterfront area. Zone 5 is the dike along the lagoon. And Zone 6 is the dike through Rendall Park. So a review of what we discussed at the last meeting. We last met with you in December 2025 at a committee of the whole meeting. We discussed the design objectives and rationale for the dike improvements. Specifically, we talked about seepage conditions and the need for below grade seepage improvements. And just to review, the concerns with seepage is flow from Harrison Lake migrating through the dike fill, resulting in vulnerability to the dike. And the analysis identified that in addition to the dike crest level not meeting current design standards, there is a need for seepage improvements as well below grade. And then we presented an updated approach to the dike improvements, which was developed based on community feedback. And this approach includes no permanent raising of the dike crests along the waterfront. The permanent improvements would all be below grade to improve the performance of the existing dike. And then if there were a large enough flood to exceed the crest level of the existing dike, there would be a flood response procedure with deployable flood barriers placed along the full length of the waterfront dike. And just to review again, we have a conceptual section for that dike upgrade, and the design includes a sheet pile, which would be driven at the location of the lock block wall that runs along the beach. And that sheet pile driven into the ground would form a barrier against seepage moving through the dike fill. And then there would be a hard surface at the top of that sheet pile, which would facilitate deployment of a temporary flood barrier during a very large flood. So to review, the objectives for this project are to improve the resilience of the existing dike and shoreline infrastructure, to facilitate flood response, and to maintain existing viewscapes along the waterfront. And the resulting approach for the wastewater treatment plant road and shoreline The objective there is to improve resilience against erosion and to maintain access to the wastewater treatment plant during and after the design flood. So that involves raising the access road and the embankment around the wastewater treatment plant and improving the erosion protection along the shoreline slope. And then for the waterfront dike, as we discussed, the objective is mitigation of below grade seepage concerns and facilitating flood response during a large flood. So since that last meeting, just a review of what we've been up to. A key step was to confirm with the provincial inspector of dikes that the approach we were discussing was acceptable. And we did meet with them earlier this year, and the discussions were positive, and we do have a path forward for this proposed approach. So that was a key step to have moved through. And then following that, we have refined the design and taken that concept we presented and implemented it in a design across the waterfront and have been developing issued for permitting drawings showing a plan across the study area. And then finally, we have been working on a review of environmental permitting requirements. Environmental permitting is a key consideration for this project. Any works that are considered in-stream works can have fairly lengthy approval timelines, which I'll discuss later. So getting ahead of this is important, and identifying the needs there is a key component for this project. So now I'll just walk through the implementation of the concept that we presented. So this is showing zone 1, which is the embankment around the wastewater treatment plant. And the approach here is similar to what currently exists around the wastewater treatment plant, which is a sloped shoreline with riprap bank protection. For the upgrades, the embankment would be raised about a meter or so to an elevation of 15.1 meters to provide protection during the design flood. And it includes upgrades to the bank riprap to better withstand erosion. Zone 2, which is the wastewater treatment plant access road. So here we would be raising the existing access road to an elevation of 14.7 meters. So this would be going up 1 to 2 meters depending on the location. Currently the elevation varies along that road, and we would be raising it to a consistent elevation to provide access during the design flood. And a key consideration here was to have the footprint not encroach on the existing natural hot springs pools by the hot springs source. So you can see there in the plan view that's shown that the road is shifted out towards the lake to avoid having the toe of that embankment encroach on that pool area. So then moving along to the Miami River pump station, the concept here is similar to what was along the access road. It's a raised embankment with riprap shoreline protection, but an important challenge here is just working around constraints with the existing conduits for the pump station and flood box, which convey flow from the Miami River to Harrison Lake, and just maintaining the existing footprint to work around the space for those outlets. So in locations where the design interacts, the approach here is to go up vertically with a lock block retaining wall rather than having a sloped embankment. So that would be above the pump station outlet and likely along the flood box outlet as well. So now Zone 3 along Hot Springs Resort, we move into the dike, and here the improvements are below grade as I discussed previously. The main upgrade is the sheet pile driven into the existing dike, and here it's an earth-filled dike, so the sheet pile would be installed at the waterside crest location of the existing dike, and then some grading work to provide a surface for deployable flood protection during a large flood. Now, Zone 4, we move into the commercial area, and here is where we have the existing lock block wall that runs along the beach. And the sheet pile would be installed at the location of that existing lock block wall, replacing that lock block wall, but providing that seepage mitigation function, and then some grading to provide a surface for deployable flood protection that would also serve as a walking path along the beach. And then access to the beach, which we show here in yellow, would be similar to what's currently there, with transverse ramps sloping down to the beach along the lock block, along the sheet pile, held in place with lock blocks closer to the beach. But if you're familiar with the existing ramps down to the beach, the concept here is similar. So then Zone 5 along the lagoon, the concept is very similar to what we showed in Zone 4 with the sheet pile installed at the location of lock blocks along the beach. One key area to point out is the plaza along the left side of the screen that you see here. This is a tricky, constrained area, and the approach that we have here has the seepage cutoff sheet pile following the existing walking path around that plaza, and then transitioning to the alignment along the beach. And then this is the eastern portion of Zone 5, which transitions from the lagoon, runs across the parking lot, across the boat launch access. The sheet pile seepage cutoff would be continuous through there, and then would transition to the earth-fill dike in Zone 6 along Randall Park. And similar to the dike in front of Hot Springs Resort, the sheet pile would be installed along the waterside crest of the existing dike with some grading work done at the top of that. And then a tie-in across Rockwell Drive into the slope at the east end of the dike. So next steps, a key next step is to proceed with environmental permits for works that are considered in stream. The approval timelines can be lengthy for federal and provincial permits, typically exceeding 12 months. So it is critical to move forward with these applications to keep the project progressing. And then in parallel, we would continue working through detailed design, which would be taking the design we presented here and refining it to issued for tender and eventually issued for construction levels. And then following that, tendering and construction. So the target could be as early as this fall for works that are not in stream, and then likely for more likely for fall 2027 for in-stream works, depending on permit approval timelines. So that is the update on the design. Thank you again for the opportunity to present this evening, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maldoff. I'd invite if anyone in the gallery tonight or online has questions for Mr. Maldoff pertaining to this presentation, we'll entertain those now. Come up to the mic and the podium, please, sir.
We want to talk. Okay.
Thank you. Just a question about why Zone 1, the height of the dike is 15.1 and Zone 2, 14.7. That's one question. The second is, will you all be putting the block wall in Rendell Park as well, and then the removable dikes, or it will be another arrangement? Because Zone 3, 4, 5 has the removable dikes put on against the block wall. But since there's no block wall in Rendell Park, will there be a block wall there? Just those two things which crossed my mind. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Mr. Maldoff, can you answer the question on the height difference 15.1 versus 14.7 meters between zones 1 and 2 near the wastewater treatment plant and the access road?
Absolutely. So the current standard for the design flood along the Fraser River system and Harrison Lake is considered part of the Fraser River system, as its highest levels occur during a large Fraser River flood, is based on a very large flood that occurred in 1894. That is the largest flood on record. And the estimated Harrison Lake level corresponding to that flood was 14.1 meters. So along the wastewater treatment plant, as this is critical infrastructure, there is an allowance for freeboard and for protection against waves, providing an additional meter of height. Whereas along the wastewater treatment plant road, there is a 0.6 meters of additional height, which is a fairly typical approach to that factor of safety, but accepting that there may be some wave overtopping during the design flood. And this was developed in discussion with operations staff based on project requirements.
Thank you, Mr. Maldoff. The second question was, maybe this question, and I think you've explained it, but I'll let you summarize it. I understand from your presentation that there won't be any lock blocks. The lock blocks on certain areas will be removed, and a new hardened surface and the sheet pilings will go in, and that would be in zones 3, 4, 5, and 6, including in front of Rendell Beach. Mr. Maldoff, is that correct? That could you maybe walk through again the slide that deals with how the construction will proceed on Zone 6?
Absolutely. So as you summarized, just talking about Zone 4 and 5 first. So as you mentioned, right now there is a lock block wall that runs along the beach. Those lock blocks would be removed and would be essentially replaced by the seepage cutoff sheet pile, which would form a similar profile along the beach. For Zone 6, there are no lock blocks right now. It's just kind of an earth embankment path with mild slopes on either side. And there would be no sheet piles added there. No lock blocks added there. It would be a sheet pile driven below grade and essentially flush with the existing grade. And then a bit of contouring on the top just to create a uniform surface for deployable flood barriers, which would only be put out during a large flood.
Thank you, Mr. Meldoff. I think I may understand why the question comes up. It's the presentation and the slide has a very faint line showing the existing grade from one side to the other, and the sheet piles are all below grade. So there wouldn't be a wall on Rendell Beach, as I understand it, but the existing grade, and there'd be a hardened surface, and the sheet piles would go down below grade.
Correct, and also maybe another source of confusion. It does appear that there's a little bit of a step here up to the proposed grading shown in our drawings. That would be smoothed out through detailed design, but the intention is not to have a step there. It would be just flush with the existing grading, essentially.
Thank you. Another question, please go ahead.
Yes, pardon my ignorance. We are in Heron's Cove, which is just to the corner. And I want to know how high, if any, this will be compared to what it is now.
Thank you for the question. Mr. Maldoff, can you answer that again? I believe it's at the existing grade or approximately the existing grade. Mr. Maldoff, can you clarify?
That's correct. It will be at the existing grade with a thin, maybe 10 or so centimeter thick, just top layer placed to create a uniform surface. But for all intents and purposes, it's at the existing grade. The intention is not to raise the dike permanently.
And this would, should there be a flood, then you put the, whatever you call it, on deployable diking there.
Correct.
Please proceed.
Good evening. My name's John Allen, 398 Hot Springs Road. I'm a bit disappointed in the lack of clear information for tonight's discussion. When I got here tonight, there were only 2 copies of the agenda. Don luckily lent me his, and these illustrations are in black and white, and it's difficult to follow the discussion. But let me just make a few comments, if I can, moving from west to east along the waterfront. Zone 1, the sewer plant, I'm not sure why we need to increase the riprap and or the height of the wall around the sewer plant. It's essentially a waterproof installation, and in previous high waters since we built the plant, we have never been threatened by Harrison Lake waters with the flooding of the lagoon or of any of the equipment. And my understanding is that the last rebuild of the sewer plant anticipated flood levels and was built to survive a higher water level than we've had in the past. So I just don't understand why we're going to spend millions of dollars doing something that doesn't appear to be necessary.
I think we'll try and get you an answer, Mr. Allen, right now. Mr. Maldoff, can you explain why the riprap is being enhanced around Zone 1?
Yes, so our condition assessment of the existing riprap showed that the riprap is sparse and undersized for the expected design wave conditions, and improvements are recommended.
So is that an increase in the height of the riprap area around the sewer plant, or just the addition of more riprap on the slope?
So that is discussing the riprap that is on the slope. In terms of the height, that is based on comparing the existing top elevation of the embankment against the design flood based on current standards, which is larger than any flood that has been experienced since this infrastructure was constructed.
Okay, I'm also concerned about the loss of screening, because when I was the mayor and built that plant, we were very careful.
Mr. Allen, can you
to-
just please, if there's a question, we're happy to try and answer a question pertaining to the presentation.
Yes, I'm getting to it, Mr. Mayor. Please stop interrupting me. When we built that plant, we were very careful to make sure it was invisible, and we planted the trees around to screen it. And this plan seems to eliminate that, and I think that would be a great loss. Are there any plans to replace or protect the existing landscape screen around the plant?
Mr. Moldoff, has the design got to the point of landscaping around the lagoon and any impacts to that?
It has not yet. At this time, we have identified the technical requirements, though we do understand that considerations such as planting and landscaping are important from an aesthetic and environmental standpoint. And we intend to consider those aspects during the detailed design.
Thank you, Mr. Moldoff. Is there any other questions, Mr. Allen?
Yes. Zone number 2, which is the road to the sewer treatment plant. It's a very popular walking route. People walk out there to see the source of the springs and admire the view of the lake and the village. In 50 years, part of it being responsible for that plant,
Mr. Allen,
I
I'm
can
going to
only
interrupt
recall-
again and ask, is there a question, please?
why are you raising the road? The road has only ever had water on it
Question,
once in 50 years.
Mr. Allen.
And when it does get water
Thank
on
you.
it, you can drive there in a truck or a backhoe.
Mr. Allen, thank you for your question. Mr. Moldoff, can you explain why the road to the lagoon is being, wastewater treatment plant is being raised?
Once again, the proposed design elevation for the road is based on the identified design flood, and based on comparing the existing elevations to that design flood, we are recommending that the road be raised to maintain the required access during a flood.
Mr. Moldoff, just a quick follow-up question from me.
The-
When construction's complete, people will still be able to walk on the road. It will just be a meter higher. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The access has never been a problem to the plant, even at the highest water in 50 years.
Mr. Allen, do you have another question?
It's a waste of money. Yes, I do. I don't really understand what's happening in front of the hot spring resort or in front of Block 1 of the village. But I am quite concerned about the area behind the lagoon, which you call Zone 5, I think. So Zone 5 has got this sheet pile out where the current path runs along at the transition zone from grass to sand. And it also seems to include the a necessary height to handle wave runoff from coming down the lake. Two observations that I want to know if the designer is aware of the fact that the high water that we get in Harrison Lake and Harrison Village area happens exclusively during spring freshet, May, June, maybe July. During
Moldoff,
those
can,
times, we have no wind from the north and no waves to
Mr.
worry
Allen, I'm
about.
going to interrupt you again.
It's winter time that we get waves.
Would really happy to answer a question. And Mr. Moldoff, are you aware that the main risk of flooding from Harrison Lake occurs in the spring?
Yes, that is when the highest lake levels occur. And to reiterate, the permanent works maintain the existing dike elevation they are not providing a permanent raise of the dike, and therefore there is not consideration in wave runoff of any of the permanent works that are proposed for the dike.
Thank you, Mr. Moldoff. Any
Sorry,
other questions, Mr. Allen?
I didn't quite hear that. Is he saying that there is no wave run-up addition in Zone 5?
I am saying that the permanent works are at the existing dike crest elevation, and there is no permanent raising of the dike.
Well,
Any other questions, Mr. Allen?
well, I wonder, is he aware that the outside of the lagoon acts like an offshore reef and prevents any wave action coming down the lake from getting to the current
Mr.
esplanade?
Allen, is there a question on this design that we can try and answer?
I'm asking him if he's aware that the lagoon structure on the outer part of the lagoon provides the protection necessary for wave runoff by providing the equivalent of an
understand the
offshore
question.
reef.
Mr. Moldoff, are you aware that the lagoon is out there on the far side from around the lagoon, and that may mitigate wave action?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moldoff. Any other questions, Mr. Allen?
Yes, when we move along to Rendell Park, I'm quite concerned about what's happening there. But the simple question is, what happens when we get to Rockwell Drive, which is a provincial highway? Are you going to raise Rockwell Drive and put a permanent hump in the road? Or are you going to have temporary barriers? Are you going to close the road?
If we'll get you an answer, because I had the very same question when I read through the presentation on the weekend. Mr. Moldoff, can you explain the design at this stage for the dike project as it crosses Rockwell Drive?
Yes. As I said, we expect that there will be a small amount of grading required to create a uniform surface along the top of the dike, although the intention is not to permanently raise the dike. There may be a need for a small amount of grading along Rockwell Drive to match that graded elevation of the dike through Rendell Park, although we're talking, no more than 10 centimeters or so. So if that is the case, there may be a gradual hump that needs to be added there just to create a smooth transition when deployable flood protection is placed. But we're not talking about a large hump going over the road, potentially just a small amount of grading, and the implementation of that is something that we would need to work through during the detailed design process. And then with this strategy of placing deployable flood barriers during a very large flood, the intention here would be that those flood barriers would continue along Rockwell Drive during the flood to form a continuous barrier, and then tying into the slope on the east side of Rockwell Drive. But that is based on a constraint from the project geometry based on the approach that we are going with right now. So if you did have a very large flood at the design event that we're talking about here, there may be a period where Rockwell Drive needs to have flood barriers placed across it, which would impact access.
Thank you, Mr. Moldoff. Any other final questions, Mr.
Yes,
Allen?
yes, I also would like to know what they're planning to do about the boat launch, which is an important feature of Village.
Mr. Moldoff, can you explain how the project will proceed through the boat launch ramp, I guess, for lack of a better word?
Yes, so similar to Rockwell Drive, there may need to be a small amount of grading work that's done just to create a smooth transition with the finished grade of the prepared dike, but we are not proposing to do any large raising there, and the sheet pile would form a continuous barrier across the boat launch as well, below grade within the paving that's there.
Thank you, Mr. Maldoff.
Can I just ask one more question, Mr.
One
Mayor?
more, absolutely.
With the
Mr.
province cancelling hospitals, cancelling schools, and cancelling everything, what makes you think that they have the money available to fund this project? And are we, the taxpayers, paying for all of the design work up to this point? Or is that also covered by a grant, and is a grant secured? My concern is that we're looking at a multi-million-dollar project here that I don't believe is
Thank you,
ever going
Mr.
to get
Allen.
built.
If I understand your question, is there grant funding available for this project to proceed? I don't believe that's part of this presentation, but it's an important question. Can I turn to CAO Cook? Is there grant funding for this?
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. Through you to the Speaker, there is, which I think has been very well stated throughout this process, is that we have $11 million to go towards this project. There's an initial $6 million grant, and then the second one was a $5 million grant.
Thank you, CAO Cook. Is there anyone online participating remotely with a question tonight?
People attending online, if you can use the raise the hand function, we will allow you to speak.
Seeing none.
There does not seem to be anybody
No one
online.
online. Then we'll conclude this part of the agenda and we'll move on to, I understand there's two recommendations. Who do I look to proceed with this? CAO Cook?
Mayor Tallon, would you like the recommendations read out? Sure.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So the first recommendation is that council directs staff and Northwest Hydraulic Consultants to submit all necessary environmental permit applications required for the waterfront dike upgrade project and complete detailed design with the intent to tender the project. And the second one is that council directs staff to issue a request for proposals for construction to take place outside of peak tourism season.
Moves, Your Worship.
Recommendations moved by Councillor Faccio, seconded. I saw Councillor Swinban's hands first. Discussion on the motion regarding these recommendations. I'm sure everyone's got something to say. Councillor Swinban, do you want to start us off?
Sure, thank you. It's appropriate, I assume, to ask questions. Daniel, you still there?
Absolutely.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. I remember having this conversation with you probably 3.5, 4 years ago, and it's one of the reasons I got into politics. And I just can't believe how far we've come from what was originally proposed back then and to what we're looking at now. And kudos to you, and kudos especially to our staff for your persistence and patience in this matter with council, pushing it back so many times to you to come up with a different design. So thank you. Question though, for along most of the length is going to be some sheet piling, and we are impacted by wind erosion here. So I'm wondering, is there a possibility that this sheet piling will become exposed and therefore have a step down into the lakeside sand where people might get hurt or have to step down, or will be completely buried and overtopped with your walking path?
Mr. Maldoff?
So we would expect that it would perform similarly to the lock block wall that is currently there. The profile would be very similar to that. If there was some wind scouring that occurred, you could potentially do some grading, supplementing some sand along the beach potentially, but it would not be drastically different from what is currently there.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a concern because our beaches are widely used with people without shoes on, and if they're going to be stubbing their toe on the top of these sheet pilings, then that's a concern. Is there a way that we can put the walkway overlapping the sheet piling?
That is the intention in the design for the walkway, to overlap the top of the sheet pile, which also forms a continuous barrier and tie in with the deployable flood barriers.
Okay, thank you. While I'm on the topic of sheet piling, will this in any way limit future plans in future generations to do anything lakeside of that sheet piling? As an example, we might want to increase the bandstand that will be on the lakeside of the sheet piling. Will we be able to still improve our infrastructure, whether it be something like the bandstand or electrical utilities or water utilities onto the lakeside of that sheet piling?
I guess my answer at this point would be, if there are any potential future considerations, it would be helpful for us to be aware of those as we continue with detailed design, so that those can be considered. But like any existing infrastructure, future works would need to be coordinated with what is constructed. But I don't have an answer for that at this time.
Okay, thank you. I think that's something maybe we should look at and discuss, future infrastructure projects. Now is the time in the next 24 or 36 months that this is being done, that maybe we should have a vision for future potential projects and we could plan for these now while this is being done. My next question is about accessibility. I'm assuming that all this will be accessible for people of all mobility needs and that sort of thing, for everybody to access both the lagoon and the entire park pathway?
Yes. So one benefit of the approach that we have here is we'll have an enhanced walking path running along the top of the beach, and the beach access itself will be similar to what currently exists.
Okay, that's good. Couple questions about the Miami River. Looks like a lot more infrastructure is going to be installed than I thought would be. So two questions. Will it be fish friendly? Are fish going to be able to get in and out where you're proposing to improve the riprap?
Yes. So in terms of the conveyance through the pump station and flood box, there are no changes to that as part of this design. We're working around what's currently there. So the fish passage will be the same as the existing condition.
Okay, and Daniel, same for the water. There's going to be no change in the profile of transiting water out of the Miami River in the case of it flooding?
Correct.
Okay, one other quick comment. Thank you for your answers. The other thing is, and I know that we're on this already, but a business-friendly schedule, if we could, for construction, and also mindful that we have a Canadian First tendering process. So I'd love to see Canadian Steel in there and Canadian contractors, if you could. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Schweinmans. Councillor Jackson?
No, Your Worship, my only concern is the longer we delay, the more it costs us. Every day it costs us more money. And we're past this rhetoric stage. We need to get on with this project. A 3-year deal needs to be done. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Pachu?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Dan, for the presentation. This has been 4 years in the process since we started with this, so we haven't actually rushed into it. It's a very good plan. The council made it specifically to you that there was going to be no interference with sight lines along the main part of the beach, like some people were putting up sheets of cloth and plywood and all this. God bless them. But the deployable ones is what we've gone with, and that's a great idea. Now, the deployable one, Dan, will go from, if I'm correct, from the front of the hotel all the way to Rendell Park. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. And in relationship to which I think is the first part of the project, which I'm glad is the road to the wastewater treatment plant, that carries the main sewer line for the whole of the village. We did have the road did sink a few years ago. We had to spend considerable thousands of dollars to repair it. And back in 22, 23, if my dates are correct, the wastewater treatment plant electrical did get flooded. And we had to send our fire trucks there to bail out the water to keep the plant going. So it has got flooded. So this way it would be more protected. So I'm glad to hear that. So the riprap and the raising of the road will certainly help towards that. Other than that, I think that overall our council and staff have done a very good job of informing the public. There's been 5 committee of the wholes, 5 regular council meetings, and 6 public engagements of all kinds, from open houses to Let's Get Into It Harrison. So from that point of view, I'd like to thank the public for getting involved in this over the years and giving us their input. And thank you very much. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Fatcho. Councillor Vital.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. I certainly appreciate the presentation and some feedback that was brought forward on this agenda item tonight. It was one other opportunity for council to hear again directly from our residents. For me, public safety has remained a key consideration throughout this process. And the feedback that we have received, particularly from local businesses who will be directly impacted, caused council to request changes to the dike design and move towards deplorable. Also, this process has included multiple opportunities for public engagement and input. Residents have had opportunities to speak at meetings, open houses, provide written views and questions, engage with council members directly, and participate in ongoing community discussions. That level of engagement is important, and it reflects this council's commitment to transparency. In my opinion, council has done their due diligence on this project. There comes a point where, after listening to the community and reviewing all of the information, council needs to move ahead and make their decisions. Continued dialogue remains important, but so does providing certainty to our community. For these reasons, I am supportive of the recommendations and want to express my appreciation to everyone who has taken the time to participate throughout this lengthy 4-year process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. I too am the opposite of disappointed. I'm quite pleased that the input we had from public and the many sessions we've had as a council reviewing feedback and what's important to the village have been so ably taken into account with this proposal. It provides real flood mitigation and protection from high water from Harrison Lake. It protects valuable and vital infrastructure, and it's a very responsible thing to do. I'm very pleased that we have grant money to proceed with the project. And just a personal thanks to Mr. Maldoff and many of the other consultants and our staff for leaving no stone unturned to find a solution that looks like this, that doesn't alter the viewscape and provides the flood protection I think the village needs. Councillor Swinban's final comment?
One other quick question. Sorry, Mayor Tallon. Maybe for staff. We have enough money to do all of this project work. I think that's fantastic. Will we have enough to be able to buy all of the deployable muscle walls and whatever other technology we're proposing? Just want to confirm that.
CEO Cook?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Once we get through the detailed design, we're working with high-level estimates. I'd be able to answer that better. So when we get closer to the detailed design, but as of right now, what we're looking at with the numbers, we're sitting fairly well.
See no further discussion. I'll call the vote on the motion. All in favor? And that carries. Thank you all. Gets us to item 10 on our agenda, which is correspondence. Could I have a motion to receive the correspondence this evening? Moved by Councillor Faccio, seconded by Councillor Vital. Discussion on that motion. Don't see any. I'll call the vote. All in favor of receiving the correspondence, and that carries. Item 11, is there any business arising from correspondence this evening? I'll start with you, Councillor Vital.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. Referring to item B, correspondence under Battered Women's Support Services, I do believe that we did have some previous correspondence from this group, and as a result of that, we considered and looking into a little bit of safer street lighting, which was one of the recommendations from the group. I also thought it was interesting to note that there has been a significant development in Canada regarding intimate partner violence. The Supreme Court of Canada this month recognized a new civil tort, which means victims may now sue an abusive partner for damages related to control and abuse. That is one step forward. Thank you. And also under correspondence, item D, the email from UBCM. This has been an ongoing issue and dialogue between UBCM and the provincial government. And reviewing the letter, UBCM is requesting that individual local governments do not speak directly, independently to the provincial government on this issue. So with that, Mayor Tallon, I would like to make a motion that council and staff not engage independently with the province of BC regarding proposed amendments to the Heritage Conservation Act and support UBCM's engagement to ensure a coordinated local government response.
Moved by Councillor Vital, seconded by Councillor Faccio. Discussion on that motion. I concur. I think our best chance to effect change is to stand united with other municipal governments and work with the province for an improved Heritage Conservation Act. Any other comments on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of the motion, and that carries.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. Councillor Faccio, any business arising out of the correspondence?
Page 35, C, email dated May, City of Abbotsford to the Minister of Finance, re-provincial sales tax expansion. I'm not sure how council feels about that, but I'm not sure whether we should be sending a letter of support on that or not. Just bring it to your attention, that's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Faccio. I noted this. And actually, I would like to speak to that May 8th letter from the City of Abbotsford to the Minister of Finance. Since becoming mayor, I've had opportunity to see firsthand how the province works with municipal governments. Attending local government conferences and meeting with other local leaders, and I see things that raise concern. And this letter highlights one. At its core, when I read this letter, it seems to suggest a shift by the province. Instead of working with local governments and treating local governments like a partner delivering services to residents, they're more and more looking like local governments are simply part of the province's tax base. That's a change. And to be clear, for me, that means shifting the tax burden to property owners who are municipal government's sole tax base. And while I understand local governments are creatures of provincial statutes and accordingly, the province essentially holds all the cards. Taxing and applying provincial sales tax to professional services, it seems to me it's the top of a slippery slope that leads to a fundamentally different relationship. And this contemplated action, it's not isolated. A few months ago, many local governments were surprised to learn that BC assessments were intending to alter the way utility corridors, pipelines, and possibly railways were going to be assessed. Our neighboring communities drew this to our attention. They were looking at tax reductions of several hundreds of thousands of dollars on an annual basis. Again, the effect of that would have been to shift the burden of financing local services onto property owners. And while a final decision on reassessing has been deferred, it has not gone away. I'm hoping, like the Heritage Conservation Act, local governments work together to lobby the province and ensure local governments have the tools, resources, and remain a partner with the provincial government delivering essential services to residents. Councillor Jackson, over to you. Any business arising from correspondence?
No, the only comment I would make on that, Your Worship, just thinking about it, was when a provincial government cuts back on health care, which is the most essential thing to all of us, they're scrambling around to find every penny they can get. And I think you're going to find in the not too distant future, they will be into more cupboards than we can count. And I agree with the letter. I think it's a good letter to support, but it's going to be very difficult going forward. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Swinbanks, any business arising from correspondence?
Thank you, Mayor Talent. Nothing really except a question. Councillor Vidal brought this up with regards to the battered women. And last year, a similar letter came out, and we had talked about a renewed focus on some street lighting, particularly at the bottom end of McCombs. I'm just wanted to ask through you to staff if we've made any progress on that at all, or if we are looking at street lighting on McCombs. Sorry to put you on the spot.
CAO Cook.
Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Can you ask that question again?
Sorry, CAO Cook. Last year we had a similar letter from the Battered Women's Society, and it triggered a conversation amongst us all about street lighting on McCombs. And I just wanted to see if we had any progress on thinking about putting some street lighting there. There was some talk about doing it in future years, so just want to see if it was on the capital project list.
Thank you very much. I apologize for that. At this time, there's nothing that's funded. We've been looking at some design for water main in that area. We did, Christy and I were at a conference a week or so ago, and they implemented some very unique ways to light asphalt paths by putting in something, and forgive me, I don't know the exact name, but it's like a moon rock, and what it does is it retains the light from the sun and lights the pathway. Obviously, it doesn't act like a street light, but that was something we were quite interested that other communities have implemented in some dark areas. But to answer your question, it is not funded right now, but it is definitely on our consideration for project list.
Thank you, CAO Cook. I think that takes us to item 12 on our agenda, which is reports from councillors. I will start with Councillor Vital and work around.
Thank you, Mayor Towland. Just a short report today. May 12th, I attended the next Lunch and Learn session, which focused on emergency preparedness. and how to create your own home emergency plan. Tons of information was available, and I want to commend our staff for these sessions. I believe there's one more coming up, and I have signed up. And on May 13th, I attended a presentation and film called Trouble in the Headwaters at the Harrison Beach Hotel. The film highlighted concerns regarding forestry practices and the effects it can have on watersheds. And that's my report. Thank you, Mayor Talon.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. Councillor Paccio.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of brief reports from the Fraser Valley Regional and Corporate Service Committee meeting of May the 14th. One of the delegations' presentation was the FVRD Active Transportation Network Plan, May 2026. Their engagement, similar to what we do, engagement by numbers was 1,800 plus web page visits during the process, 170 plus survey responses, 170 plus open house attendees, 110 interactive map comments, and 15 plus community and agency partners. And the travel patterns, top reasons for walking: enjoy nature, exercise, and enjoyment, exercise, biking, enjoyment, enjoy nature, parks and trails. Top barriers to walking: lack of sidewalks, lack of trails, lack of paved shoulders, too many large vehicles, well, I ain't gonna stop. Lack on street bicycle routes, including painted bicycle lanes and paved shoulders, lack of trails. The proposed network, Regional Active Transportation Network, long-term vision for active transportation infrastructure, composed of regional routes, connections between and within electoral areas and member municipalities, regional trails, Trans-Canada Trail and Experience to Fraser, community routes, unconstructed road dedications, and conceptual dike pilot. And the other part of the was the where are we? Was the Rural Transit Needs Assessment Action Plan. This is phase 1, engagement summary, and it's page 70. Where's page 70, Mickey? Wrong way. Excuse me. It's already pulled out, ready. What's the matter with it? What we heard. Engagement identifies significant transportation barriers and challenges across the study area. Limited transportation options emerge as the most significant barrier to mobility, followed by long travel distances, high transportation costs, and reliance on others for transportation. Engagement findings also indicate that while vehicles use remains dominant, residents rely on wide range of transportation options to get around and often need to travel to local hubs and larger regional centers. Overall, respondents identified several priorities for improving transportation in the study area: improved transit coverage, frequency, and extended service hours, which we're trying to do for our weekends; more direct connections between communities, including Hope Chilliwack; expand service delivery models, including community shuttles, on-demand transit, and accessible DART service; support for community-based transportation options, including volunteer driver programs; expand service to underserviced neighborhoods and First Nations; longer-term regional connections such as express bus or rail service within the Fraser Valley and to Metro Vancouver. And the respondents from the Harrison Hot Springs was just 14. The highest was from Hope, 65, and the others varied from Boston Bar down to 5, down to 0. That's the end of my report. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Pacho. Councillor Jackson.
No actual reports, Your Worship, just a lot of inquiries from people wondering why the July the 1st parade has been moved from 5 p.m. to 1 p.m. So that's something we have to try to unravel in the very near future. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Swinbands.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. I was listening to, I don't have a report either. All of my meetings are tomorrow, actually, on Thursdays for my reports. But I listened intently. Councillor Fascio, could you send me that report on the active transportation? I'd like to see that. I've always wondered, wouldn't it be great? I was in Victoria over the weekend, and they've done a fantastic job with multi-use trails and biking trails and walking trails. They've had the advantage of some rails that they were able to convert. But wouldn't it be great if we had some kind of a dedicated multi-use trail between here and Agassiz? Somehow, that's got to be a dream that we should never give up on, I don't think. So I'd like to see that report. I also wanted to comment on what Councillor Jackson mentioned. Since 1972, we've had the Canada Day Parade as a way to celebrate our local institutions and civic organizations and businesses and people and bands and kids. And it may not work as we had expected it this coming year. There's some concerns about that. So hopefully Council can get involved and maybe make some changes there. And also, Mayor Talon, you may be doing this anyways, but just to remind the public who are listening that there is an important meeting tomorrow on a potential proposal for a new school that the province may consider in the future. So let's try to get a good community turnout for that.
Thank you, Councillor Swinbands. My report is fairly short. I had the opportunity, I'm asked by the school, high school in Agassiz, to do capstone interviews, and I've done it sort of once a semester, I think, several times, and I really enjoy doing it. I get to meet some of the students, hear what they're passionate about, and the work they've been doing, and it's a really interesting experience. Get to see some other people from the community and from the school board and from the district of Kent there as well. But certainly very very rewarding experience for me to see how hard these students are working. On the 12th, I attended a Chamber of Commerce meeting. And on the 14th, a resource community collaborative mayors meeting. And there's a correspondence. That's some of the work we do is lobbying the province on behalf of resort municipalities, and that letter is in there, trying to lobby and get the attention of the provincial government to enhance and keep our resort municipal infrastructure funding going. And on the topic of active transportation, I'll put a plug in for Go by Bike BC, which I think in the village kicks off, and I'm going to look at our community service manager, I think Sunday, May 31st. So before the next council meeting, so there'll be something happening in the village for Go by Bike BC that week. And that is my report. 14 is reports and minutes from committees and commissions, and there is none tonight, which takes us to 15A, reports from staff. I believe over to you, Corporate Officer, on the first one.
Thank you, Mayor Talon. Yes, I have a report regarding the 2026 UBCM Convention provincial appointments. The 2026 convention is going to take place in Vancouver this September, and every year we review minutes and resolutions and correspondence passed over the past year to determine a list of topics that Council may wish to speak to Cabinet Ministers about. So the minister appointments are now open. And in addition, one change that I want to highlight for Council this year is that the appointments with staff will be conducted virtually in advance. So our normal practice is, if we are not successful in obtaining a meeting with the minister, is to request a meeting with the staff. And so the recommendation is that staff be directed to request meetings with Cabinet Ministers at the 2026 UBCM Convention as follows: with the Minister of Citizen Services regarding a funding stream for responding to FOI requests, Minister of Forests regarding the BC Timber Sales Operating Plan consultation process and the importance of Fire Smart funding, Minister of Health regarding funding and recruiting for the Village Health Centre, the Minister of Infrastructure regarding funding and timeline for a new elementary school, Minister of Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation regarding modern treaties, Minister of Transportation and Transit regarding e-unicycle and e-hoverboard regulation and increased enforcement and education regarding the e-scooter pilot program, and the Minister of Water, Land, and Resource Stewardship regarding hot springs source oversight, and that staff be directed to request meetings with ministry staff should the requested meetings with cabinet ministers not be granted.
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Faccio, seconded by Councillor Vital. Any discussion on the motion?
Just a quick comment, Your Worship. We had our roller skates on last year. We better get our ice skating skates on this year. This is just wonderful. We get all, last year, I believe we had 5 ministers, maybe it was 6, and staff. But this is great. This is just another indication now our council and staff are working for the community to get the best deal and buck we can for this village of ours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Faccio. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the vote on the motion. All in favor? And that carries. And that takes us to nothing under item 16 bylaws, which gets to 17, which is new business. Councillor Vital, over to you on a cenotaph at Memorial Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Tallon. The recommendation is that council directs staff to investigate the purchase and erecting of a cenotaph outside a Memorial Hall and engage with Royal Canadian Legion Branch 32 to seek their input and guidance on appropriate design and protocols, and that staff report back to council with recommendations, including a proposed project budget and timeline. I will move the recommendation, Mayor Tallon.
Second, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Vital, seconded by Councillor Faccio. Any discussion on that?
Mayor Tallon?
Oh, Councillor Vital.
Thank you. Just some further information and feelings here. A cenotaph is a monument which represents duty, sacrifice, courage, and remembrance. It is a promise that those who served and those who never came home will never be forgotten. Our village deserves such a place where names are remembered and where moments of reflection remind us of the cost of freedoms we have today. Memorial Hall is the appropriate place. It is already a place where our community gathers together, and placing a cenotaph there would create a space dedicated to this remembrance and reflection. I also want to recognize the importance of collaboration with the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 32. Their guidance will help ensure a cenotaph is designed with the dignity and respect that is due. As a council, we often speak about creating spaces that matter. A cenotaph in front of Memorial Hall would stand not only as a monument, but as a statement about who we are as a community and a commitment to remembering those who served our village and our country with honor. For me, this is one of the most meaningful legacies your council and community can leave behind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vital. Any other comments? Councillor Schweinbenz.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Tallon, and I wholeheartedly agree with what Councillor Vidal is saying, and I'm supportive of this, but a couple questions. Perhaps through you to staff, have we ever looked into having a cenotaph at the Civic Plaza? And if so, why isn't one there already?
CAO Cook, can you handle this one?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. In my time, it has not been looked at. I know that the discussion when we had the improvements out in front of Memorial Hall looked like a good opportunity, and that's when Councillor Vital raised the thought of implementing it in the upgrades. Certainly, if there's other locations that are under consideration, which will be part of this process, we could look at a couple of different locations.
Thank you. Yeah, this might be a good location. There's quite a bit of room to the side here, and it would be could be a very beautiful little garden area. But my only concern, and I'm glad you're going to look into different options for different locations, because my only concern would be if we ever do get a large crowd, and I hope we do one day for a cenotaph, there may not be enough room on the front lawn to do it. So I assume that'll be part of your study. I'm supportive of this and looking forward to the results. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swinbanks. Councillor Pacho.
Thank you, Worship. Some years ago, it was discussed of having a cenotaph here. At the time, it was just the logistics, wasn't not about not having the cenotaph. It was everything has to happen at 11 o'clock wherever you are. And we only have one legion and one set of people who can come and stand on guard. So that's a good part of Councillor Vital there to seek the input from the Legion, see what can be done, because they're limited in their numbers in respect to that. So that was the reason why it was turned down. It was just the logistics. About standing on the street, well, as you know, we all go to Agassiz and the road is cut off and stopped. It's November, who cares? That's more important than anything else. So it's that part can be taken care of by the police or by our own folks. But I think it'd be a wonderful thing, and as a former veteran, I look forward to something like that in the village. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pacho. Councillor Jackson.
Just to remind everyone, in 2010, we did have a memorial service here in the hall, and it was very successful. We didn't have a piper, but the ceremony was just what you want. And I'm sure I've been trying for this for a long time, and I thank Councillor Vital for doing it. I'm looking forward to the day that it's erected. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. No further, Councillor Swinbanks.
Sorry, one other quick question. Maybe again through you to staff. If we do this, and I'm supportive of it, but if in 50 years a future council or staff want to move the Memorial Hall somewhere else in the village, can that cenotaph be moved with it?
A lot of hypotheticals, long way out. Councillor Vital?
Thank you, Mayor Tallon, through you to Mayor Schweinbenz. I think this is one of the questions when we engage with the Legion branch that I think that they would probably be able to answer that question, I think, better than our staff at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no further discussion. I'll call the vote on the motion. All in favor, and that carries clearly. Great. B is a notice of motion from myself from last council meeting. I should give credit to Councillor Swinbanks, who I think I could describe honestly as an environmentalist whose natural instincts are preserving our natural habitat and conserving it. And he did raise a number of things. I thought, certainly appreciate where his heart is on that matter. And while I know council didn't get a chance to discuss it in any detail, I do think that there are some things regarding forestry practices in our area that the village should have a voice on and have interests that are acknowledged and respected by provincial authorities. And I think I'd welcome the opportunity to really have a little bit more of a in-depth discussion with council to that end, to talk about, and the motion talks about, what about forestry practices? We've asked questions of BC timber sales and haven't got answers, at least that I find, ones that I can understand or put in context for Harrison Hot Springs. Changes of risks associated with wildfires from forestry practices, the water quality in Harrison Lake, which is our source of our municipal drinking water, flooding risk in the village, and again, the screening of that documentary last week highlights the potential for that. Really important, I think, for the village being a resort municipality is the aesthetic qualities and the views from the beach coming into the village to maintain that. I think when I talk to people, they are so surprised that it's 15 minutes off the Trans-Canada and you come around the corner and you have a wonderful view from the beach. And I want to make sure that the village has a voice in protecting those viewscapes And the information to date from BC Timber Sales is village isn't really even thought of, and someone else does that somewhere in an office. So I think there's lots of conversations there about how the village should be making its views known about what things it would like to protect when it comes to the view and aesthetic qualities. And lastly, I think we benefit our council to talk about whether to and how to engage neighboring communities on these things. They may have different views. They may align with our views and be advocates like us. But I think it's worthy to talk and consider if that's in the village's interest and how we might go about that. So that's the motion. If there's a seconder to it, seconded by, I see lots of hands. I saw Councillor Faccio first, and then I'll turn it over to discussion because I've probably talked enough about this. Maybe I'll start with Councillor Swinebens and work around this way.
Mayor Town, thank you sincerely for your leadership on this. I had a bit of a hiccup on that when I proposed some of this, and I think you've done a good job in winnowing it down to something that's more palatable for all of us and something that we can actually discuss. It may be that we're just going to go to the minister with some more informed ideas in September. It may be that we find a way finally to engage with BC Timber Sales and other players in the industry. But either way, I think discussion is always good. So hopefully we can all support this. Thank you.
Any other comments on the motion? I don't see any. I'll call the vote. All in favor? And that carries. I look forward to having an engaging committee of the whole meeting in the future on this. That takes us to item 18 on the agenda, notices of motion. I don't see any tonight, which takes us to 19, which is a question period for items relevant to the agenda this evening. Are there any questions for anyone in the gallery tonight or online pursuant to our agenda this evening? Anyone?
We do have one person online, I believe, going by the name of Zoom user.
Person online, Zoom user, the floor is yours. Please ask your question or your comment.
Hi there, it's Jean Beretti, 217 Miami River Drive. I'm sorry I didn't ask this question earlier. I'm semi-inexperienced with the Zoom and wasn't able to raise my hand during the conversation about the dike. And my question is this: are y'all aware that now that you've gone to sheet piling, that sheet piling installation is a incredibly loud method of installing, over 100 decibels? And there's the traditional impact driving, vibratory driving, and hydraulic press in. And I'm wondering which one of these is going to be used, because we do have a lot of wildlife around here that would be highly disrupted from the noisiest, which is the traditional impact driving. And has that been given any consideration about the noise? That's my question.
Thank you for your questions, Ms. Beretti. Concerning construction noise and method of construction for the sheet piling. CAO Cook has the design and discussions on that gone that far?
Thank you very much, Your Worship. It is still just in the design phase right now, so that hasn't been fully unpacked yet. The experience that we had over by the Coombs Bridge North, the methodology that they used was fairly noisy. That's the intent. Well, the intent would to be minimizing the impact. Like our goal when we do get to construction is we want to have a proposal, hopefully from a contractor that has a very small footprint for construction, as well as implements all current methodologies with respect to construction, and they need to recognize obviously that it is, we do have a residential section on the front there. So the short version is no, it has not been defined yet, but it is consideration.
Thank you, CAO Cook, and thank you for the question, Ms. Beretti. Are there any other questions?
There's nobody online.
Thank you. No one online. Mr. Allen, I see you at the podium.
It's John Allen, 398 Hot Springs Road. Is council aware that there's quite a history behind the naming of this building as Memorial Hall? And so Councillor Vidal's suggestion is a good one, but I think that the real need is for us to hold a small Remembrance Day ceremony here in this hall on November the 11th to allow the people of Harrison to come here and pay their respects. When the Agassiz event was cancelled due to COVID, a handful of us met here at the hall at 11 o'clock on November the 11th. Barry played the last post on Reveille from his balcony across the street, and we thought it was a good way for the village to remember the sacrifices made in both wars and other conflicts. The hall would be very appropriate for that, and some of us really miss the fact, we really miss the event of having a religious service prior to the 11 a.m. moments of silence. And I think that it would be well attended by Harrison people if we simply gathered here to celebrate November the 11th in our own community. I don't suggest we need to compete with Agassiz, but if you put in a cenotaph, the expectation is that you end up having to do a proper full ceremony with the band and the marches and all that stuff, which I don't think we're going to be able to do. When you talk about cenotaphs, I'd like to add a historical note. The cenotaph in Vancouver, which is the focal point of November the 11th for that city, came from Harrison Hot Springs. We had a granite quarry just around the point in Harrison River, because the Harrison granite is of very high quality for architectural uses. So if we are going to have a cenotaph, I'd suggest a small obelisk added somewhere near the flagpole would be adequate, and I'd suggest that we should try and find it from our local high quality Harrison granite. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments and your observations and suggestions. Your first question was, is council aware of the origins of Memorial Hall? There's a plaque outside that I've read several times, so I'm going to speak on behalf of council and say, yes, we are aware, and noted your suggestions and comments. Also a comment. Go ahead.
Just one question. The timings outside the washrooms on Rendell Park are from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. In the summer months, you have people there much later. Would it be possible to keep it open a little longer? Just because not last weekend, the weekend before that, at around 4:30, the washrooms were closed and I saw someone going behind the washroom.
Thanks for your question. I've heard this question before, not only for those washrooms, but other ones in Spring Park. CAO Cook can shed some light on that.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. This obviously is not a council issue, but certainly a staff issue. And we've received a few comments from visitors and residents alike, and we are staffing up here shortly to have our washroom attendant. So we will be seeing some washrooms, the times extended here coming up very quickly. One thing that needs to be considered when we're talking about extending the hours without having an attendant on staff is that it's very susceptible to vandalism. And our experience has been that it does happen after hours, and unfortunately, it does come at a cost to our village residents. So we have to balance that, the need for access to washrooms. A reminder is that there are some Jiffy Johns that have been placed throughout the village outside of the peak hours. People can seek those to use them for refuge.
Thank you, CAO Cook. It takes us to item 20 on our agenda, adjournment. Moved by Councillor Faccio, seconded by Councillor Schweinbenz tonight. Oh, too late. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.